Hi, hello, hey, and welcome to my tent, a place to hear life experiences, different opinions, a range of journeys, and a viewpoint different than our own. A place to challenge our own thoughts, a space to learn a little bit, and I promise some fun along the way. I believe we're better when we let a range of people into our tents, so welcome to mine. Did you know that our health is encompassed by way more than just food and fitness? Did you know I'm a health coach? What is a health coach? I can tell you. I work with individuals and groups to look at all aspects of life that help make us truly well. I have structured programs to help you create realistic, challenging but achievable, and long-term transformations that span long past our time working together. I help you take a multifaceted approach to your health, ranging from food, fitness, relationships, work-life balance, financial health, gratitude and joy, creativity, career, and more. If you are looking to make a health transformation, visit my website in the show notes or email me, sarah@sarahjohnstonwellness.com. Cheers to good health. Hello, hello. It's Friday. And I'm excited that you are here in the tent, Ryan Penley. I'm very excited to talk to you as someone who describes themselves as a rock bottom enthusiast? Not enthusiast. What was it? A rock bottom alumni.
Alumni. Yeah.
Alumni. And getting to share all of a story that I have never experienced. I know nothing about. I think that you're gonna tell us a bit about everything from rock bottom to where you are now. So I'm really excited that you are here.
Yeah. That's the idea. We can lean in two different directions. Like we could lean towards like the more positive, and or if you think your audience wants to hear the nitty gritty and the deep in the dark. I mean, whichever way you want to go, I'm cool with. I'm super transparent. I'll probably transparent to a fault, but like whatever you want to hear about.
Yeah, I don't think there is too much as transparent to a fault. I think it's really important to share your experience and your stories. And I think so much of where you are today and the work that you're doing and helping others with recovery and sobriety stems from your own journey and your deep connection and personal experience to that. So I think we can like lean into kind of both of those worlds. I think it is important to kind of showcase why you're so passionate about this and where that stems from and how that's shaped you as the human that you are today. So I think if you're cool with that, we can kind of start there. But I'd also love for you to just give a quick hello, who you are, maybe where you're tuning in from today, and then we can kind of kick off and walk through pre-recovery for a bit, if that works.
Yeah. I'm Ryan, and I am in Florida, Orlando, Florida, to be specific. So, I have had, I think, from like an objective point of view, like I've had serious rock bottoms in my life, and so I believe wholeheartedly that like if we make moves in this life as humans, I mean, right, like as a collective, if as individuals, we make some leeway and some tough problems like addiction, recovery, or whatever it might be. It's our duty, right? It's a responsibility to think to yourself, like, okay, like, well, since I've kind of made some progress, like, would it make sense to reach back and like help somebody maybe a few rungs behind me, on the ladder or, on the path, if you will. So, that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm still kind of like branching out and trying to piece together how that looks to help in the best way. And so I started. I started with a book. I'm also going to. I'm pursuing my degree, my master's level degree in addictions counseling. So I have that on the horizon, like probably November. So I'm reaching out all kinds of different ways to try to see what makes the most sense for me to like lend a hand. And then I think that the book it was a massive step.
Yeah.
But man, it was like incredibly therapeutic. Process was outstanding, and it made sense. And it really made sense once I started doing it. I was like, wow, okay, all right, this is very clear, right? Like it is very clear, like this was meant to happen. And so, yeah, now I'm going around talking about it, and it's kind of what's happening today.
Yeah, you've turned that into passion and life's work. And I love that because there's only so much that I could do to help someone if they were struggling with addiction and recovery, because I don't personally know what that walk is like. And I think people finding that commonality are like, you've been there, dude, you've been there. Like, you know what this feels like deep in your soul. Like, that's a level of connection, even to some people that you've maybe never met in real life. Like, these are people that you're working with from all over the place. So, your mom sent you to jail. So, can you
Yeah,
walk through?
yeah,
You had been living in Vegas, that you were bartending, you kind of, that was your stage, as you also say, which led to some serious rock bottoms that have spurred your life in this direction that you maybe could have never even imagined. So, can you sort of set the stage for us and walk through what that was like, and where the addiction and where that was stemming from, and subsequently your own mother
yeah,
sending you to prison? Like, what was that
yeah.
phase of life?
Yeah. And I know, like, I feel like sometimes it may land like a little light, but I also believe like that's kind of how I cope. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it sucks. No doubt about it. It's very dark to hear that. And it wasn't prison, it was jail, but nonetheless, I was locked up.
Oh, there you
And it
go.
was quite awful, right? But, so, yeah, the path, like, as a young guy, like I started drinking. I know a common question is like, how did you start? What was like the first moments of like, substance abuse? But, I started off like a lot of guys, like young men, like had a couple beers and I had enough confidence to walk up to good looking girls and talk to them. I mean, it's like, oh, this is amazing. Like I'm going to do this all the time. And so then
Yeah.
I kind of brought that to the highest stage, if you will, of that. And it's Las Vegas. And so here I am, I'm bartending in the strip in Las Vegas. I'm, right in the center, like belly of the beast, if you will. And it wasn't all off, right? There's a lot of really dark moments, but it wasn't all off. So, but it is kind of the path that really enabled the deepest, darkest moments to happen. So I'm out there, doing okay. I have a job, I'm responsible, and it just kind of snuck up on me, right? It kind of snuck up on me, meaning like. And I think it happens to most people, right? If you were to somehow like get hit in the face, say, "Oh my gosh, that's rock bottom," but it's more of like a realization. Like later on, you look around, there's like several elements of you that are completely like just not acceptable, and you're like, "Oh, wait a second, yeah, no, this is
Here I
what it looks
am.
like."
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was a part of the opioid epidemic, if you will. I imagine it's still kind of going on, but when it was at its peak, right? I broke my leg. I went to a doctor. He prescribed me enough pills to kill a rhinoceros. Like right. Like, hey, how are you? Oh, here's a few hundred pills. Go medicate yourself. So I that was a major. Most people close to me say that was a real turning point. Like I kind of that was a step in the wrong direction. And I also thought like, this is what I'm supposed to. This is my medicine. And
Right.
I was like that, but it's when you take it, it's such a copious amount of narcotics. That's not medicine. And so I was an instantaneous addict. And so then that led me down or deeper into all addiction. And so that went on for some time, and then I had moved to Colorado to escape the pill situation. I got up there, started doing other drugs, meth, heroin, crack. I mean, whatever was around. I wasn't saying no much in those days, so it
Yeah.
was like anything and everything. And so then this, at that point, is where my body started to really shut down, and I developed diabetes. And then I opened the book with this story. This part of it is that I went to a diabetic coma,
Mm.
and so I was in a coma for close to a week, and so my body temperature went down to 85 degrees. They had to airlift me to another town, a larger town with triage. And so I had most certainly driven myself to death. Some people consider that not alive, and I get it. So here I am in Colorado, uh, at death's doorstep, came back, and then that's where everybody's like, okay, well, yeah, that's it, right? That's the moment. It's like, no, 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 no. I
Oh,
wanted
okay.
to, apparently, I had to make sure that I was like, this is truly the floor. This is like, this
Yeah.
is, there's
Is
no,
there another basement? Is there one more level? Can we
I'm
go
like
down?
hitting the elevator button. Like, I want to be really certain about this. And so I got to Florida, and I did. I made certain I got there. And so I was homeless for a while. And at this point, like the drugs were no longer an option. I didn't have the money.
Mm.
So it was like, all right, well, what's really cheap? And it's like, okay, vodka and a plastic bottle. So that was, that turned to be, my pretty much my only food group for a couple of years, few years. So yeah, that led me into the scenario that you had brought up with my mother. So my mother is she's still battling addiction. She's still battling alcoholism.
Mhm.
And so you put two people that aren't well together, and things got, well, to my recollection, she said I tried to cut her head off. Now, I may have said that. I don't know. All
Yeah.
I know is I wake up in jail, and I'm kind of like, what the heck is going on? And here's like a little asterisk to the story. She's also accused her own mother of the same head trauma. My
Yeah.
my real father, my stepfather, so my biological father. So there's like she's not well, and so um, I pray for her often. However, that's a big area that I don't know if I'll ever see it actually, her ever make any real progress, and it hurts. But in this particular scenario, she said those things, and I undoubtedly know she's serious about them. And so here I am. I'm not able to defend myself because of my mental state where I was at, and this was, a milestone, if you will, of real rock bottom. So,
Yeah.
so that I had gotten to, hopefully, I made that sake of brevity, got to kind of the inquiry about the situation with my mother. Yeah, that is the truth. That's what I have.
Yeah. Yeah. So you also have sort of noted too, like there were points where looking back, you're like, that was a rock bottom, but you were still living in this, like, is it though? Like, do we have a little bit more in us? And so was there one like, so that was seems to be a big defining moment. Was it after that that you were like, okay, we got to get it together here. Like we need to make some serious changes? Or did you still kind of like go back into like, well, it wasn't really that bad? I think we play everyone as humans do this. We like justify that things aren't
Mm,
as bad maybe as they actually seem. And then when you're looking back years later, you're like, whoa, I didn't think that was bad. Like, geez.
yeah.
So did you have a couple like compiled like rock bottoms, or was there one that stands out the most as like that was it where I like where
Yeah.
I finally said like we're done. Like I have to change or I'll die. Like I will die.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an excellent way. Like just how you put it is exactly kind of what developed. And so, however, like that, I didn't come out of that jail time and just pop right back. So what ended up being the reality is, I like to think of myself as not like, I think I looked at the situation and it was very clear to me this is not sustainable. So they say, admitting you have a problem is the first step, right? And then there's a reason why that cliche exists. It's because it's quite true. So I wasn't necessarily at that phase. I wasn't arguing any longer. I I knew that this is bad, and I'm at serious risk, and my life has now crumbled. So here, well, what do you do when you look around and then you realize, like, okay, you either say, all right, this is where I end, or you get to work. And so there was never a pivotal moment. There was never like this like bounce, and then I
Yep.
was like out of there. It was like really hard attempts and failing, uh, over and over again. Went into some programs. The desperation increased, And so my desperation increased, and I found myself like really tough on options. And so, I would say that the heightened effort and the heightened, so I guess there's a few variables that are all kind of like working together, right? I, I was desperate, like beyond belief desperate. And I'm like, I'll do anything, guys. Hey, anybody, like I'll do anything. And I'm saying that knowing the chances of my failure are very high, right? So then I had to come up with something better because what I had been doing wasn't working. Willpower wasn't working. So I had to like really like come up with some kind of a strategy. And I had approached my cousin, and I had already burned her. I had already burned her. She did not want to hear what I had to say. So I came with a pretty good proposal. And I said, hey, listen, like I'll get a breathalyzer and every day, like I had a job. I was like working in like a retail place, only place that would hire me. So I was, not working much. It was like a handful of hours. So, money was scarce, but I said, hey, listen, I'll get done with work. I'll blow in this breathalyzer. I was like, what else could I do? And so we sat down, and she's like, I want you to go to therapy once a week. And it was a blessing that I kind of figured that out, not having insurance and things like that. So, but then it was AA. I want you to go to AA once a week, and that didn't eventually pan out in the whole plan. I'd given it a shot, but it was tough for me to really resonate there. But I did go to therapy, and to be honest, the breathalyzer, we actually didn't really use it that much, but it
Mhm.
was there to hold
Yeah.
me accountable, and it was a part of the agreement. And so therefore, it was that was really it. Like I had signed up for the accountability, and so that was once that specific plan kind of came together, things started kind of looking up, and I
Yeah.
started getting some traction.
Yeah. And I am very grateful for people like you who share their stories because, I don't have I don't know if addiction is something that you think is like encoded in you. I don't That's kind of how I hear of it, is like addiction is a disease, and it is. And some people are afflicted with that and some people are not. But what I'm really grateful for you also being willing to share is that there you tried and you failed and you tried and you failed. Because not everything in life is going to be that clear cut line of like we make the decision, we try it, it works, we move on. So when you were in those points of like trying something and that failing, how were you moving forward? How were you still saying, like, I still have it in me? Like, what was that little voice inside of you that said, like, keep going, try something else, keep trying? Because that seems like it would be something that was like knocking you down over and over. And you'd been in some dark places. Like, what was inside of you saying, like, I can still do this, keep going? And like, I'm sure within your work today, how are you mentoring other people through those moments where they're like, well, I tried and I failed. So what's the point? Like, that is a big thing. And to keep yourself pushing through that, like what did that look like for you? And how does that show up
Yeah.
today?
Like what was the engine that kind of kept the thing going?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's
So
on you. And like, yes, you can have people and like, you have like your cousin and you have people that are alongside of you trying to hold your hand. But like you said, at the end of the day, you're not going to change unless you want to. And that's something
mm,
that's deep inside of you. And you're getting knocked
yeah.
down with attempts and them not working. Like, what is that little like light inside of you, that fire inside of you? Like, how did you talk to yourself or mentor your own self through continuing to get to sobriety?
Yeah. Yeah. It's I had given up. I tried to give up. Now when I say that, like I didn't really go, obviously I didn't go through with suicide. And I wasn't like contemplating suicidal plans. However, the hope had been just eradicated. And if you
Mhm.
could call it like suicidal, I mean, I was doing my damnedest to like try and drown myself and not wake up. So um, I got to the point where I'm like, okay, well, I am still here. Like,
Mhm.
so what is it? Why? Like, I started asking the question why. And so, in a situation like that, it is really tough to find meaning in anything. So, I turned to scripture. and
Mhm.
I'm a Christian. So I turned to scripture and it helped, but it didn't necessarily like grab a hold of me. Like it didn't just snatch me up and just give me a clear path. Um, I, I managed to find some really small wins, and I was humbled enough, maybe by force, I was humbled enough, but I was also at least aware enough that when I did get a couple, I said, oh, feels pretty damn good. And they came from unexpected places. Like in my physical health, like I was I was not in good physical shape, but like I started with like just doing jumping jacks like for a total of 3 minutes, but I gave myself like hours to do the 3 minutes of
Yeah.
like, and I felt like somebody beat me with a bat like afterwards, but I made a decision to like go, and then I had linked those days together, and it was like it hit me like a lightning rod. Like after 4 or 5 days, and the pain kind of started to dissipate, and I started to see a little bit of progress. So it's a tiny win, but like I held on to it, and I think a lot of people that are like they're in this hopelessness, like they see somebody, they might see myself and they're like, oh, you've been sober 5 years and you wrote a book. But there's this huge gap, right? So what's overlooked is like, for instance, I would, I set the parameter to like not drink for 15 minutes and I failed like
Hmm.
15 minutes. I'd just say, okay, I'm not going to do it. And I would have a bottle of alcohol like at my job. Would be there. I'd say, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to touch it till 1 o'clock. And I'm in there at 12:55 and I'm like, ah, I did it again. So you make an excellent point about all the failures. So what I think again is like it's like overlooked or not valued enough is those little tiny ones that you could hold on to. And sure, you're not going to be able to scream from the rooftops like, oh, I didn't drink for 20 minutes. Like nobody's going to cheer you on, but like you have to cherish those little things. And and then if you do that enough, it grows exponentially. And I know that's very tough to communicate to somebody in the trenches. It's
Yeah.
very hard because there is nothing but truth in one day at a time, or 1 hour, or whatever it
At
is.
one
Like
15
that's the
minutes. Yeah. Like
yeah,
1 minute at a time. Yeah. It
yeah,
sometimes needs to be broken down into that small of a
yeah.
time frame. Yeah.
Exactly. And then own that 20 when you do it for 20 and you say, all right, there we go. I saw that's possible. And then you just do it a little bit longer the next time. But I wanted to touch on something that you had mentioned uh, about addiction. And this is a novel idea that, or at least to me, it's something that came after I wrote the book and after I've been kind of like developing a way to approach this. And so here it is. This is so addiction can be seen as a disease and it's treated as such, like in a clinical situation. However, what about this? Like, I think that the addicts actually have manipulated and made the world fantastic. And here's a
Hmm.
couple of examples. Like, so it's like, is Mother Teresa, was she addicted to peace? Was she addicted to care? Was Steve Jobs, was he addicted to innovation? And I think there'd
Mm.
be a strong case. There's a strong case for it. Like, yeah, that's an addict. Like, like there's probably times where people question Mother Teresa's sanity
Right.
for the things that she was doing. Like, hey, what's your problem? Like, why do you got to go? Why do you got to go so over the top with all this? And then she's like, I gotta do this.
It's in
Almost like an
me.
addict.
It's my DNA. It's like in your coding. And that's what I mean by like, I think it's something that we're all like born with these things within us. Cause, for me, like I can have a drink or not have one. Like to me, that just doesn't do anything. But I can tell you, I very much so have an addictive personality in some ways to other things, to different vices, shall we call them. And I like the point that you make too, because I think sometimes society would deem someone who is doing something quote unquote positive, even if it's addicting, a good thing when that actually is maybe mentally, emotionally, physically taxing to that person still, versus they look at someone that is an alcoholic or addicted to drugs and that's bad. Okay, but it's still a similar concept. So I actually really like that parallel that you just drew, because like all of us probably have something within us that we could call an addiction, whether that's
Mm.
shopping or exercise or innovating, creating entrepreneurship. But like some things are going to be seen as good from our society and some things will be seen as bad. And I don't like that because I think we're all humans. And I think it is really important for everyone to get there to share their story because, and I don't know if you have any experiences with this where society has treated you less than because of your past and your addictions and what you were maybe doing during those times in particular. But like, what I always try to remind myself of is they're a human being. I don't think you woke up one day and you were like, I want to turn my life into shit. Like I don't think people wake up wanting to do that. I think people want to feel good and be good and things happen. So have you ever run into experiences where people treated you less than poorly, like the perception of you has been made very clear to you? And like how did that look? Like what did that look like and how did that feel in those moments?
Y- I mean, you're spot on that there's a stigma and
Mhm.
there's a perception, and I can say that my experience, like I kind of did it myself.
Mm.
So but when I say that and it leaves my lips, I'm kind of realizing that a gift that I kind of had is I never really blamed anyone else for it.
Mhm.
My mother's an alcoholic. My father was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And so I have all these scapegoats, but I didn't blame God. I knew at the end of the day, it was me. I took those pills, put them in my mouth. Nobody else, nobody, not even one time put cocaine into my nose and into my, it was always me driving that intake. And I picked up that bottle and so the gift was responsibility.
Mhm.
And so when you ask about how people treated me, um, I kind of had people did definitely, without a doubt, they didn't trust me. They didn't count on me. I was a liability. I, many close people just like, couldn't afford to have me around. They just couldn't do it. And so they, I look back and I start to wonder, or I don't wonder. I know that the reason that most of them treated me the way that they had is because they had to, or
Mhm.
at least these are people close to me. And I think what you were touching on is like saying like,
Well, both. I mean, one, I think it's actually a interesting thing to talk about and explore too, because when you think about it, I've lived in many large cities. And when you walk by someone on the street that you don't know and they're homeless or they're on drugs or you can tell that they're, drunk or whatever, I think us as people, we make those snap judgments and those assumptions about those people. Um, so I think it's a interesting thing to think about of the people that know you deeply and how that showed up for them versus like someone that would have passed you on the street when you were living in Las Vegas and in a rock bottom. Like I think
yeah,
that's where I think it's really important to listen to these stories is like the thing that ties us all together is that we're human beings and we all have a set of assumptions about people based on what society tells us. So it is interesting to think about like whether it's someone that never knew you or someone that knew you very deeply. And I'm sure it was hard for them too to have to put that space up because you can love someone. I'm a big believer that you can love someone and also know that you need a boundary. And that's really
mm.
it's tough and it's really hard. Um, but the best thing and the hard thing, a lot of times, all these cliche sayings we're getting in today. The right thing and the hard thing is the same thing. So it is interesting because, I'm sure you've had experiences with people that love you very deeply and
Yeah.
cared about you, but for their own well being, had to have a wall. And then people who never knew you and just passed you on the street and made those assumptions or said things under their breath or, walked away being having their own conceptions about it. So I think it goes both ways of strangers and
So how
family.
about this? Is because it's interesting is that I did notice that like clinically, I had seen different helping professionals throughout the whole journey. And I do know that like there's like a threshold at like a year. And I think it's a human thing, you know, like once you hear that somebody's been sober for like a whole year, it kind of opens up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because, and this makes it very hard for people because again, like I was saying, you know, you can't brag about the 20 minutes or you could, but it would just fall on deaf ears. And I did see and know that it was a little like when I was super proud about a month, 2 months, 3 months, I would go into these scenarios and man, I was feeling like I'm on my high horse. And then I remember the reaction of like helping professionals, whether it be psychiatric therapists um, or just counselors. Um, and don't get me wrong, like some of their opinion driven kind of reactions was probably because of the statistics. The
Right.
statistics show like 3 months really ain't shit. But what hurt, well, it didn't hurt, but it just like I think gets mowed over and kind of like lost. And it's like you've got to celebrate that 3 months. 3 months
Yeah.
is huge for somebody.
Yeah. 15 minutes is
Huge, and
huge sometimes for somebody. And
it's
that's that it's this kind of like, and I get where maybe people will look at someone that's had 20 years under their belt. It's intimidating. It's scary because they're like, I can't imagine a world where I don't drink for 5 minutes. How am I supposed to get there? And it's just not comparing your chapter 0 to someone's chapter 45 because there's a lot of life that happened for that person in between those things. Um, so you know, from the medical system is also just broken in general, but like maybe from they get jaded, maybe they've seen it all and they've seen a lot of it. Um, but I think that a big takeaway for me is if I do experience someone that I love suffering with addiction, is if they tell me I didn't drink for 10 minutes to celebrate it from the mountaintops with them. Like that, I think is a good takeaway to not just be like, so, like, because for them,
yeah,
it's not so. It's not, that was probably a feat of strength in that moment. So,
yeah, and it's I know that rather good milestone was a time a friend had, you know, he come and found me. I had been drinking copious. I was talking about tons, like a big giant bottle of vodka. And I'm thinking, he's gonna hit me with it. What are you thinking? What's your problem? Did you go to work? Blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking all these things. He didn't do any of that. He didn't pour it out. He didn't like give me a real. He addressed it. He said, "Oh, I see. You know, you went to the grocery store. You got all kinds of food in the fridge." And I'm like, because that was it. And then but he didn't add any more weight. And so that
mhm,
was like, you know, just not even adding to the weight of some people is a big deal as well, right? So there's
mhm,
all kinds of different ways to feel those people, and it's not easy. I get it. You mentioned boundaries. We mentioned celebrating things with people, and everyone's unique, and everybody's at a different place. So there's no doubt in my mind. Every situation is so hard to navigate, but I think if your heart's in the right place, you know, it'll guide you to what needs to be heard at that time. If you know if you're coming from the right place with the right approach, you know.
yeah. And I think that judgment piece is huge too, because especially if you're working through these and you're just getting knocked down, like you're judging yourself enough.
Yeah.
You don't have to add, like, I'm already aware, like we're really mean to, I feel like, people can be really good at being really mean to themselves. Like, I get it. Like, you don't have to tell me.
Yeah.
I'm aware, but I'm trying. Um, and I think, especially talking about the fact that you most people I would feel don't just wake up one day, decide to become sober, first try, make it work, and they've been sober for 40 years. Like, I don't really feel like that's a thing. Is that,
Pretty rare.
yeah,
It's pretty rare.
right. I feel like that's not
Yeah.
typically what it is. And so being willing to understand that we're also, as humans, we're all faulty. All of us have something within us that we failed at. And I try to take the stance of it's not failure, it's feedback. Like, I do my best to, if something doesn't go well or correctly, or I've messed something up, quote unquote, it's like, okay, well, what can I take away for next time that
Mm.
will maybe make the situation different? And I could try to coach my clients through that too, of like, the word failure is pretty negative. Um, and yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it doesn't feel good to fail. But what is like some of these tiny things that you can take away that like maybe you can change for next time? Like what's the feedback?
Mhm.
What's the little data point that you can take from that you can implement and try again? That's what I try to reframe it as, because I don't love just being like, you failed, period, end of sentence.
Yeah. And we're kind of brought up in the school system. It's like, got an F. And it's like, you failed. And it's like so hard. It's like, and it's always red. It's always in my mind. It's
I
always red. It's like
know.
F.
Circled at the
Yeah.
top, and then see me written under it. Like you're like, great, I'm aware. And that is interesting too. Just like all of us are also, I don't know one person in this world who's good at everything. Not one. Like my husband happens to be brainiac with math. And here I am, like 2 + 2 is 4, just making sure. Like just double check on a calculator, just making sure he can do calculus in his head. And
Yeah.
all of us are going to have these different strengths. And I think a big one for you is now helping to mentor and coach and help where you can
Yeah.
other people that have maybe been in your shoes and are trying to make a difference. So today, I know you mentioned that you've written a book. You have a couple different ways that you're working with people. How are you taking, oh, and you're going back to school, which is amazing. So congrats on that. Um,
Thank you.
how are you now today taking everything that you've learned and helping and trying to make a difference with people who want to change their lives and are maybe in that rock bottom that you are very familiar with, that you've been there?
Yeah. So, well, I'll start. I developed a 21-day challenge. You can find that at myrockbottomrecovery.com. Um, and I also have a Facebook page, my Rock Bottom Recovery. There's links for the challenge. Because the challenge was designed by myself. I use the word challenge because it sparks an interest and kind of a
Yeah.
slight motivation at first, but it's more of like calculated small wins, like kind of what I was talking about. Like
Yes.
I've set it up to kind of like get that start and get some momentum in the right direction, both physically and both mentally, and also like socially, right? So
Mm,
it's a 21-day challenge. It's free. And so I kind of put that out there just to give something of value. And then of course my book, the book is a mixture of memoirs, so it's entertainment, and then it's also some tactics and strategies, and some wisdom from people smarter than myself. So that there's that, and you can check that out at ryanpenley.org. So as of right now, that's kind of where it stands. It's what I have to offer. But you know what else? You can go on that site and you can fill out the author contact page. It's me.
yeah.
You reach out. It's all good, and I'm glad to do so. And I'm itching to say this one thing about. I just heard this quote from Tyra Banks yesterday.
I love her.
She says, "We're all flawed and we're all awesome. We're flawsome." And so
Ah,
it's been ringing in my head. It's been ringing in my head since yesterday. So I don't know. I
it
thought I
is
had to say
true. It is very true. And I think so much of what I try to do is like remind people of that every day. We're human beings. And whether that is how you interact with the person at the grocery store or how you interact with that person that you walk past on the street in clear act of addiction, whether that's someone that makes a different choice than you, like we're all at our core human beings. And I think one of my favorite things to also say is you may look at someone from an outward appearance and think, I have nothing in common with that person.
mm,
Um, if you sat down with them for 10 minutes, I guarantee you could find at least one thing that connects you, whether that's you both grew up in Massachusetts, who knows? But like we are more connected than we think. And I think it's a really good practice to try to sit with our own judgments of people and situations. Because, like I said, I don't think you woke up one day and thought, I really want to go into a diabetic coma from my drinking and drug usage. Like, I really don't
yeah.
think that's what your intention was when, as a younger man, you decided to have that first beer. Like, people, that's not what people want. Um, and so I think it's really important that you're also helping others to see like this wasn't easy for me. Like I'm not 5 years in out of nowhere. It wasn't an easy situation. It wasn't something that happened overnight. Because I think as a society, we also love a good instant gratification. Amazon 2-day Prime, like recovery, submit in cart, is at my house in 2 days. Like we
I know.
love instant
It's
gratification.
super mad. It's super mad when it's like been more than 2 days.
I know. And that's how we function. I think it's really important just to remember like we're all gonna have shit that happens to us. And the journey is really important to talk about because
Yeah.
it brings that human side out to all of us. Because it's true. We're all flawed. We're flawsome, Tyra.
Lost.
I love that so much. Also, you're about to become a dad.
Oh
Yes.
yes, yeah. Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got the text before we got on the Zoom call. She's going to be induced in the next 2 weeks. So,
Okay. So you're like really, really about to become a dad.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Very exciting. Have you thought about or maybe put so many, I mean, obviously they're very small for a very long time, how you will talk to your children about addiction?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's I. We just my wife and I we just spoke about it the other day, and I don't think she liked my answer because I was kind of like, and of course I was talking about later in their years, like they can
Yeah.
drink, they can make that choice because eventually they will have that choice. So it's not to shield it or hide them from it. I want it's my job, right, to well, I'm going to be very transparent, like I mentioned earlier. I'm always going to be transparent. I mean, hell, they can read the book. It's okay. It's there.
Yeah.
However, I want them to see me as an example and and say, I want to be like that. And I'll be very clear that you cannot get like this. An ideal version, hopefully on the way. So, but you cannot get like that if you choose to do this.
Yeah.
So, that being said, and also know that like you might have a proclivity for this. So be weary and know it can happen to you and it can sneak up on you. So just being very honest and then also doing my part to like show them like, hey, I mean, I hope to be my children's superhero, right? So
Mhm.
and that's going to take all of my energy, and that's my goal from here on out. So starting in 2 weeks.
Starting in 2 weeks. You
So
have 2 weeks to here's
starting,
a fun
starting
fact.
2 weeks.
Here's a fun fact. No one knows what the hell they're doing. Not one. Even my mom the other day, she's like, Sarah, you're almost 35. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I still don't know. I'm like, superb. And then you become a parent and you realize, like, whoa, like we all do our best. We all do our part and our best to try to imprint on them. But I really dig that it'll be a very transparent conversation. And especially because they may have more of a predisposition to have some of the similar struggles. And it's an interesting line because I think it's important to actually show your kids that you are faulty in some ways, to show
Mm,
them that there are ways to overcome those things. Like I think growing up, maybe thinking your parent is perfect is almost a detriment. Because no one is. And I really like that you're going to be open about it. And I think that in turn will also make them more comfortable coming to you,
mm,
talking to you, opening up, asking your opinion, maybe leaning on you as opposed to like, oh, I have to hide this from mom and dad because I don't want to
okay.
get in trouble or I don't want them to be mad at me. I think it's
Yeah.
opening those lines is important. So that's yeah, but still, no one knows what they're doing, so I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah. I'm not scared.
Yeah,
I
it's
feel good
fun.
about it.
It is.
I feel
It
good about
is
it.
one of the craziest things to watch something that's half you. It's the craziest thing. I'm super excited for you. And to see what they get from each of you is really, really fun. And it is one of the hardest jobs I've ever had. It is probably the hardest job I've ever had, but it also is also the most rewarding. And so I'm really excited for you. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl yet?
It's a boy. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I have a son too. He'll be 2 in June. They're a
Oh wow.
they're a
Okay.
different breed. because I have a lot of nieces. They're a different breed, but they're really fun. I'm really excited for you. And I think he will see you as that superhero because the way that you speak about this, which is you can't get 5 years in without getting 5 minutes in. Um, I think that level of transparency, and I think anyone listening to this, including myself, has like takeaways now of maybe how to approach someone that is in the depths of their rock bottom or struggling with addiction or in general just struggling with something. I think there's some it's some good takeaways of how you can maybe approach someone that you love. If you I've never been there, so how would I know?
Mm.
Um, so I really
Yeah,
appreciate your honesty and talking about all this.
nice. Well, I appreciate you having me. It's been fantastic.
It has been great. All right. I will link your website and where to find your book, as well as your social. If you want me to link your social, if people want to find you there, like
Yeah,
Facebook and your
Facebook.
and the socials, the interwebs. So I will link everything up in there. And Ryan, thank you again for coming on and sharing your
Thank you
story.
very
I
much.
so
I
appreciate you.
appreciate
And I am very excited for in the next 2 weeks to see
Yeah,
the
yeah.
little one getting born. Thank you
Thank you
again.
very
I
much.
appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in to the Welcome to My 10 podcast. I hope you had as much fun listening as I do recording. I am so happy to have you here and see you next episode.